Welcome to Lawrence Explains Online Academic Tuition. In this video, I'm looking at the English Language Paper 1, Question 5. Okay, so this is a continuation from the previous 4 videos, and we looked at Section A of Paper 1, and now we're moving into Section B, Question 5. The whole section is just this one question, which is the creative writing section. Okay, so Section B, writing. You're advised to spend about 45 minutes on this section, writing full sentences. You're reminded of the need to plan your answer. You should have enough time to check your work at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to plan 2 different answers here because there are 2 options, so I'm going to plan both of them. So either write a description of an old person suggested by this picture. We've got this picture of this older gentleman here. Or write a story about a time when things turned out unexpectedly. Okay, so let's go with the first one here. Sorry, so I just paused the recording there. There's a lot of crazies that come past my apartment on a Sunday evening, blaring the music out. Here we go. So let's have a look at the first one here. We're just going to do a plan. So I advocate doing a kind of spider plan and just taking a few moments to think about brainstorm some ideas first of all, and then after you've done that, then you decide what you're going to do. So let me put it into, let's divide this into 4 boxes because we're going to do 2 plans here. So let's go with the first one here. So we've got an old person suggested by this picture. So to me, I'm looking at him, he looks, I don't know why, but I'm going down the route. If this guy is an old blues musician, maybe a blues or a jazz musician, but I'm going to say he's an old blues musician. So that is who this guy is. That's his main identity here. And what is he doing? He's going back to, let's say he's going back to one of the places that he started his career off, and let's say that he started in, I don't know, Memphis. I don't know why I'm going down this route. I don't know much about Memphis, but I'm going to go down this route. So he's going back to this, going back to Memphis, and what is he going to do there? I don't know. Is he going to play a concert? Is he going to go to, could it be a funeral of an old friend, old musician? Could it be family? Is he going to visit family? I don't know. And in terms of stuff that I would include here, maybe let's have him, I like the idea of him walking down a street and then into a bar or a restaurant that he's going to work. He's going to be engaging with somebody there, maybe looking for somebody. I feel like maybe some ideas are starting to come together now. So he's looking for somebody. I'll just put looking. He's looking for somebody. What other ideas? Obviously we've got great physical description here of this guy. He got his kind of craggy old face. Slightly concerned expression. He's got like these sort of intense, look, kind of green eyes. His beard is actually quite manicured, in fairness, and he looks like he's got a bit of style going on here. He's got a bit of like a check shirt. I don't know if he's got like a scarf or something going on here. So there's a certain style to this guy, and that's what I think what made me think of him as a blues musician. Anything else you could do in terms of details? Let's give him a name. Let's go with maybe a John. A Lewis, perhaps. Okay, let's go with Lewis. I don't know, let's call him Lewis, I don't know, Green, Lewis Green. I have no idea why I picked out that name. Okay, so got some ideas here, and that's the kind of first part of the plan. The second part is to actually add a little bit more structure in here. So second part of the plan is, I'm actually looking back and I'm going, do I know anything about Memphis? No, I know nothing about it. So why am I going to have that as a location? Let's think about a city with a, you know, I actually know or have been to. Let's go with, man, New York could be a good one. Could be French. I've lived in France. Could be an old French musician. You could be visiting France. So there's a lot of blues musicians that do visit France. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with this. Let's go with Nice, France, because I've lived there and I can describe it, and I can have this guy going back to a bar that he played at in his youth, and now he's coming back as an older, successful musician. He's going back to see if he can find an old friend. Okay, so he walks through the old Nice, and I can do a physical description of the buildings. These kind of shabby, run down buildings, and it's a kind of like a Moroccan zouk type feel in the old Nice. So we've got the sun, we've got the, you know, maybe the sort of the burnt orange sun of the evening as the sun sets, tourists, you know, the life of the city, and he rounds the corner and he goes to his old favourite bar, whatever they're going to call it, let's call it something, L'Américain, let's call it that. So you'll notice what I'm trying to do here is try to give specific details, because when you give specific details, you're able to create a world. When things are very vague and you say, well, the guy went round the corner into his old bar, that's just too vague. We want to say he rounded Rue de Lafayette, and sure enough, his old haunt, L'Américain bar, was still standing. There was a security guard on the outside smoking a cigarette, and he heard the thunder of the drums from inside, something like that. I don't know. It was just off the top of my head. So it's trying to make something a bit more specific, and details are what give you the ability to build a world. Then let's go into maybe some physical description of this chap. Maybe go into some emotional description as well, as how he felt as he was walking into the bar. What's his history? What's his backdrop here? I'm just trying to think is the way I can create a bit of tension or create a bit of intrigue here. He's looking for an old friend, and he's looking to record an album that he's worked on or something like that. He's looking to record something he's worked on for a long time, and he's an older guy now, so he really wants to record it now while he's still got the chance to. So maybe that's going to be the storyline there in the kind of background. And he goes into this bar and asks, you know, for Jimmy, I don't know, LaFontaine. That sounds jazzy. Okay, so sort of again another specific, something specific there. So obviously this is a very detailed plan that I've just done. I don't think you would actually need anything that detailed, but I think from that plan there I probably could create something like a half decent world here for the context of this exam. How long have we got? We've just done 10 minutes. It was a bit longer than I'd expected. So I think I will actually leave it to you to have a go. This second one, write a story about when things turned out unexpectedly. So again, you go through the same process. You go through a spider diagram here, and then you plan out in a bit more detail. I've only worked for 10 minutes here on this plan, so that would still leave me 35 minutes to write something. What I'll do is I'll just pause my video now, and I'll just maybe spend just literally 5 or 6 minutes just writing something out, just blast something out quickly, so you can get a bit of an idea as to where I will be going with this piece. Okay, so after planning the essay, I just spent about, I don't know how long I spent there, probably about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes even, just working on a text, just putting a few ideas down for this descriptive piece. So have all the planning here, which, we had the blues musician and all this business here, and we had a really nice scenario. Well, it was nice in my mind anyway. It was a scenario that this character Lewis is going into, and he's trying to find his old bandmate Jimmy LaFontaine. And so that's the scenario. It is a description, so I'm going to make sure there is some descriptive writing involved here, as well as kind of narrative as well. And actually, if anything, I probably could have got away with much less narrative and slightly more description. But let's just have a look through here. So 38 years had passed since Lewis had played in the Old Nice. At this point, the once wild and energetic musician was a silver-haired, bearded, craggy-faced old veteran. Jimmy's step was a little stiffer than in his... Sorry, it should be Lewis there. That should be Lewis. I've got another guy, Jimmy, coming up in a moment. Lewis's step is a little stiffer. I just put that in there. Lewis' step was a little stiffer than in his youth, and his voice a little hoarser. But when he touched his guitar, the years slipped away, and he strummed the spirit of the blues like few men could. So we've got a little bit of physical description here. Silver-haired, bearded, craggy-faced, veteran. His step, how he moves as well. That's all very descriptive. And then we've also got, what he does for a living as well. He's a guitar player, so he's obviously a good guitar player. So now we're going to go into a bit of his history. So the last concert he played at La Lune, the city's finest music venue, had ended in disaster as his bandmate Jimmy LaFontaine had drunk one too many whiskey sours and ended up falling off the stage and knocking down the first two tables like they were pins at a bowling alley. So a little simile in there. Naturally, the bar owner, a refined Parisian man who seemed always to be lighting his pipe, decided that Lewis, Jimmy, and their band were no longer welcome at La Lune. Lewis finally had enough of Jimmy's antics and decided to leave him, their band, and the south of France altogether and go and pursue his music over in New York. Things went well enough for Louis Green, or Big Lou as he became known over the course of his music career. He recorded with some of the greats and was a big draw in New York City for many years. Jimmy was a gifted guitarist, but at this point he felt that his aging hands had only one final album left in them. Over all the years and his many successes, he had never found the kind of chemistry with another musician that he had had with Jimmy LaFontaine. Those early years of playing in shabby bars and bistros in the south of France had been something special. There was a creativity that Jimmy had on the saxophone that Lewis had rarely heard in another musician. Lewis decided, coming into his 70th year, that he would track Jimmy down and ask him to lay down the saxophone on his final record. As fortune would have it, Lewis got word that Jimmy had also returned to France, and he had heard that he was playing at their old haunt, La Lune. As Jimmy approached the venue, time stood still. He wondered if his old friend would be there, whether they would recognize each other, and what words he would be able to muster to Jimmy if he did find it. Okay, so it's really just like an intro, to be honest with you here. It's just a little short story. If I were to critique this, actually, I wouldn't give this like 100%. Just in terms of the exam, I'd say actually, you know what, you could do with a bit more description here. It starts to get a bit more narrative orientated through through the piece. There is still good description, there's good backstory in there, or there's a good enough backstory in there, and a lot of details in there as well, so there's a little bit of world building going on. Sorry if you can hear the dogs in the background, it's my, yeah, there's a neighbour with lots of dogs, I don't know how many she has, like at least 5, anyway, lots of crazies around here. Just to get back to the passage here, if I were to critique this, I would say could do a little bit more description as the passage goes on, because this is really supposed to be a descriptive task. There are some good details in there though, and as I say, these details create a world. And you know, this is good enough for a GCSE, for a GCSE paper. We're not expecting miracles of people. We're not expecting something really polished in 30 or 40 minutes. It's just something that is reasonably decent. So if I were to critique this, I would say, this first paragraph is really solid. Second paragraph is also decent, but I would maybe see if I could get a bit more descriptive work in these later paragraphs. I'd maybe cut this one out and, maybe do a bit less narrative and just make it a bit more descriptive. But this is just, this is what I just kind of knocked out after doing that plan there. So I think it would still get a reasonable mark, but could probably be a little bit better if it was a bit more descriptive. So yeah, I'll leave you with that video there. Hopefully that process is useful to you. This kind of process of just brainstorming and then trying to put something down in order as well. Even if you take 5 or 6 minutes or even 10 minutes to plan, it's going to be worth your while. Like when I was writing that, it wasn't too difficult for me to write because I'd already planned it in a lot of detail. So definitely don't shortchange yourself on your plans. Okay, so I will leave you guys there with that piece. So thanks very much for tuning in and for working through the video. Hopefully this is going to be helpful for you for this creative writing section on paper 1.